Good evening and welcome back for another Runewars battle report. It's been a little while, but real life has taken over. Managed to get a game in last week at the local club against Rich, who brought his Waiqar. So another elf versus undead off. A very similar list to what I've been running recently. Aliana with Malcolm's Bequest and Ambush Predator, there to fuel the Deepwood Archers with Megan Cinderwin, the Fire Rune, a support silence from close quarters targeting, an absolute machine gun of a unit. Another small unit of Deepwood with Tempered Steel, a Scion, because why not? A small unit of Donati Warriors just naked, I couldn't fit the Wind Rune in. And some Leonx Riders, a slightly bigger unit, 2x2 with a Moment of Inspiration. I found the 3x1 or the 1x3 to be a bit clunky and unmanoeuvrable. So I thought I'd go back to the 2x2, hence where I've had to trim a couple of upgrades here and there. Rich had a Maro list with regenerative magic, a couple of small units of archers, a couple of solo carrion lancers, a 3x2 of reanimates with a death call and death mist banners, and a 2x1 of death knights with the gauntlet and rank discipline. He had a smattering of other upgrades in there somewhere to bring him up to a full total. I can't remember exactly what they were, and that's mostly because they didn't come into it. Right. So we get into setup. Rich picked the deployment of standoff. There we go, nice and simple. And I went for bounty, figuring that I could just pop mine on my archers. And if I lose that unit, I'm pretty much gone anyway. And looking at Rich's list, he had a lot of small units. The obvious target was going to be the 3x2 of reanimates. And if I kill them, great. If I don't, I can still get the rest of his army. You know, I don't lose anything out of it anyway. So that was the plan. So here's our setup. You can see I've got my Darnati on the right. Here we had the crumbled wall, I think it is. Some ruins here. And this was some undead terrain. You can fit 2 or 4 trays into it. And if you collide with it, you get blight. Can't remember what it's called, but there we go. I actually placed this one here, and I figured, well, I'm not going to go into it anyway with my unit of archers because it's too big. And I made it overgrown, so it's a nice big piece of terrain for me to shift around. You'll notice I've put my objective token on here, and you can just make out on his archers there. There we go, pretty much what we have. We've got some archers, a lancer, archers, his big block, a carrion lancer, the knights here on the flank, and Maro there bringing up the rear. We go into turn 1, half decent runes for me, 2 reds and a green, but 2 blues for him for his regenerative magic if he chooses to use it. He just pushes up his knights on his left flank. I've basically dialed in a ton of really late moves and shifts with my army, so he had to go with quite a few of his. So he's moved up his reanimates with Maro as well, and here the 2 archers, he dialed in shoots, I think because he didn't know how aggressive I was going to be or how fast I was going to move, but either way, so he's just had his worms to go. I've moved and shifted my Donati Warriors up to here. I just want to either sit in here and be nice and protected, or shift round and threaten the side of his army, or just do what my Donati do best, and that's just exist aggressively. Over on this side, the Slide and Drift Queen herself, Aliana, just come whizzing around the corner here. The idea, hopefully, is I'm resigned here to probably busting out my Ambush Predator early. But if that means I get to roll up his small units of archers before Maro can add too much to them, then I'll be happy. Because the thought is either he bolsters the skeletons, and yeah, I have to chew through them a little bit longer. If that means waiting with Aliana, get really pumped up whilst he can't shoot at her, so be it. Or, and if he's doing that, he's not pumping up his reanimates, which are holding 75 points. Yeah, so either way, I don't really care. Over here, I've pushed my Scion up a little bit to sort of run interference with his reanimates if I need to. You'll notice these guys have pushed forward not tremendously far. Again, being quite cagey, I've rallied and shifted basically with both of these units, because they've both got exhaustible upgrades, and you can just about make out here that these guys are going to go on 8. I did shift with them. And at this point, his lancers have gone as well, and they've just, I think he dialed in their ability to ditch out Blight. Again, I think he thought that I was going to move up further than I did. But elves, and they're not brave. Into turn 2. Again, I would quite like to see the 2 greens, but I can't be greedy. I've got my 2 reds here. He just shifts his worm around to face the threat of Aliana, which is fairly smart. Over on this side, he's sort of moving this guy to look to bear into the battlefield. I wasn't quite sure why, but he seems very defensive with the worms. These guys are trying to shift round past the terrain, get involved. And here, so last turn I'd shift, because I knew I had initiative in the second turn. So that was the thing, I was counting. So I'd made sure that these guys were in range of one or both units of archers, and they just went to town. 6 damage plus 1 green, so 7 damage from the shooting, and then 1/2 plus the lethal 3 from the fire rune just kills a unit of archers before he gets to grow them, before they get to do anything. So well done. And of course, at the end of their activation, they can just scoot back out of range because of the support sign. I'm a big fan of this. And there we go, I've just scooted back cheekily, the mighty elves that I am. I even got a little lick of paint on Megan there. These guys can't really do much. I think they pop a couple of wounds off somewhere. Oh, they've rallied again, because I figure I can't actually get to anything. This angle isn't good enough. They're not quite in range to do that, and I figure their time will come, so I just rally them up. This here is for my son. You can see that he's going to go shift and defensive. These guys, again, I'm not desperate, because there's points nothing in here, but I'm basically waiting to see where he goes with his knights and his reanimates, because I don't want to have to fight both at the same time. And the way things are here, I reckon I can pretty much deal with one to go. So I've moved him up and defended in case he gets some shooting off, and these guys are still just shifting around, waiting for their turn to get involved. My Donati have just moved into this terrain and armoured up. Again, they've got a bit of paint, but I haven't got round to... they've been dipped, so they haven't been sprayed yet, so very shiny. Again, fairly cagey. She's just sneaking up because no one can see her. She's disguised in her tree. Ambush Predator hasn't been popped yet. She's just sneaking up, going, don't mind me, I'm fine. He's used Maro here to boom. All of a sudden, she's facing twice as many archers. Not being quite as confident. Here we go. I think this is our view of the battlefield. So he's swung around with these guys. They've moved up as far as they can. Again, the 2 worms aren't really getting up to much here. I'm fairly happy with where my army's at the moment. My archers can gang up on any unit that get too far here, and at the very least my tree can hold up his combat centre here in time for my archers to swing around. So into turn 3, no red runes, and this is despite me reflipping, and I think I exhausted Melkorns as well this turn. So no red runes, but lethal 3, worse things have happened. These guys have reformed so that they don't take a flank charge from Aliana, which was very smart, because as you can see I've dialed that in right there. She goes in, smack. This is what she rolls after re-rolls, so not terrible, not brilliant. So that's 1, 2, 3. The surge is 4. It's turn 3, 4, 5, 4, 7. Yeah. Plus the mortal wound 8, and a triple panic check, which is quite good. And this is what I get for the triple panic. So I really could have used something where I remove a tray or something, but really not great, because discipline breakdown, he didn't have any upgrades, so I can't remember. I think I gave them an immobilise token. Bit disappointed, but anyway, half the unit's gone. Now he moved with his knights and collided with this. Now, I can't remember why. I think he wanted to move into it, or thought it worked differently. Rich has only played about 4 or 5 games of Runewars, so there are a few rules that we went through during the game. But either way, they sort of got stuck here. and grab the panic token that you can just see for their troubles. Archers open fire, do a few wounds here. I think that's probably the big unit trying to pick on the worm. My small unit, despite all the rerolls. Oh no! I've managed to. That was me firing out here on this unit here. So it wasn't. Yeah. And then the small unit joins in. Only 1 hit plus the surge, so 4 more go. So that's half the unit gone. Fairly solid. You see the trees waiting in the wings here to help out. Now he's pushed them forward quite aggressively, which turns out to be a bit of a mistake. The trees added in and killed a couple of reanimates off, but no biggie. There's 3 greens there, so he's going to regen quite a few. We've been leaving the trays on, not because he's got lingering dead, just because it's easier per se, and because he's got Maro here to bring more back. Instead of spending our time fiddling around with trays, we just refill them. My Darnati. Oh, here we go. That's why. He put them in because he wanted to pin my Darnati in combat and stop them, moving out or anything. But really, fortunately for me, I was planning on messing around with them anyway, so I dialed in the shift. So I was just able to shift out of combat, take my panic token, and that was quite frustrating for Rich and quite fortunate for me, because now they're in a fairly unenviable position, whereas he was hoping next turn he could just wail on these guys and get to town, get going on them. Yeah, my cats have sort of reformed, trying to face into his big block for a big charge next turn. And his Maro wasn't actually in range anymore. He moved these guys up too far, and he realised that afterwards. So he wasn't in range to regen anything this turn, so he just sort of healed up a little bit, got himself an inspiration token, ready to do a bit more damage next turn. Yep, and here we go. So after the regen on the little soldiers, on the little reanimates, we've done a bit of clear up on trays, etc. This is what the battlefield is looking like. These guys still have a couple of inspiration tokens, which is quite good. Aliana's stuck in up here. And again, the worms haven't really done much. Oh yeah, so he dialed in the let's give you some blight attack on the worm, and he said he was actually hoping that Aliana would wipe the archers out, because as it stands, because they were still there, he couldn't give her blight, because it's only 4 units that are unengaged, if I remember correctly. So yeah, quite a fortunate turn of events for me this turn. Into turn 4, no greens but double reds. Great, except that obviously my big block of archers are not in position to really shoot anything this turn. Hey ho. Aliana gets to swing. She goes early. Can't remember where the extra blue came from. Maybe I got to reform his archers, can't remember. Either way, she goes nuts on them ish. 4 left, but still grinding this combat out. I charged in with my Scion early because I wanted to kill as many of these as I could before they could go. And you'll notice that these guys have charged in as well. That was actually that dice roll earlier, so they got an early charge in, killed a load of these. Aliana did her stuff up there. That's why there were the 4 dice. Anyway, the tree's done his bit. We're down to only a few surviving models here. He enters the terrain with his knights, and I'd looked at his dial, and I could have dialed in an attack with these guys because I was still in contact with it, but he could have moved in after I dialed it in, so I decided, you know what, I'm just going to rally, defense up, see what happens, because he can't attack me really this turn. So there we go. These archers just shift, trying to get themselves in position to pick on his units on the right. Yeah, Maro goes, brings back a couple of trays. The grind here, it's a thing. It's a thing. My unit's just pushing up and like turning and trying to get itself into position. And that's the state of play at this point. Into turn 5, pretty much the best I could hope for in terms of runes, I believe. Yep, Aliana finally gets rid of these archers, and I've reformed her to face in on the Lancer. He attacks with his knights and just decimates this unit, and as well as that, they've now got the death grip condition, so they're just going to melt, and there's enough turns for them to just die between now and the rest of the game. These guys attack, again using their moment of inspiration, not quite finishing off the job, but the tree's ready to step in and help out as well. His skeletons go. They've done a few wounds here, I think, due to the abilities, the upgrades in the unit. Popped one of these guys. Here we go. These archers were just in range of that worm. I'd moved them up last turn, so we just went to town, and that's 6 damage plus 3 lethal. That's 9 before we even get to the fire rune. Yeah, which is horrible, and I think I'm able to get the fire rune off on Maro, or maybe that's not this turn. Over here, the tree has a little go, and we take out his champion upgrade. We had just about enough damage to do that. There we go. Yeah, we get to the end of the turn, and the Dunarti warriors just melting, losing a member per turn. Into turn 6, again, some fairly okay-ish runes. At least this means my tree's got decent armour up there in the centre. And again, these guys, I think I used up my last inspiration token. They go to town and just kill off these reanimates. They lose one of their members for their trouble, can't remember how. My tree, I dialed in an attack. I think he either finishes them off or sort of loses it. I tried to be cute with my archers and see if I could turn around past this rock. Yeah, I couldn't. So I crash into their stop. Luckily, the good old support sign bails me out here and I get to shift back. And we'll try again next turn. His Maro goes and does a bit of shooting. Does a bit of damage. Isn't that nice? Splat. And actually, he manages to panic the cavalry, so they're now facing the other way. Great. So they now can't easily get away from these guys with an early move and go chasing here. Now I'm pretty much guaranteed I'm going to get a flank charge here. Yeah, I push up with Aliana. These guys are just backing off the best they can to try and get away from the nasty, horrible people on horses. And yeah, that's pretty much it. A bit of shufting, some Dunarti died, and we went straight into turn 7. Things are speeding up at this point. Rich didn't have a lot of units left. I'm just trying to position mine to take out what I can from his. Again, 3 green and 2 red. Now that is bloody brilliant, but I don't think my big unit of archers is going to be able to do anything. I can't remember, quite honestly. I go as early as I can to reform my riders, so I take only the front. Take these guys in the front. You'll notice this one lone guy here who will die at the end of the turn due to his condition. My tree moves right up. Due to the 2 reds, I'm able to get an early move up and armour up, and this actually causes him real problems with his Maro. Goes in with his knights, smacks a couple of them around. I've shifted and reformed the big unit of archers, same with these guys, and we're ready to unleash hell on this cavalry next turn. Oh, much better picture. He had dialed in a big old move with his Maro, not anticipating me moving my tree up, which means now, okay, he's had that for a while, but he collided with me without charging, which means he gets a panic token, and yeah, immobilized because trees are a thing. I dialed in a curving charge, which I just missed, hence picking up the panic token, but I'm fairly sure I'm going to wipe him out next turn. Yeah, the lone sword monk finally dies. This game, they did nothing. I still like them in the army. They're very good for... I think if I'm going to take them, I'm going to take them with a wind rune, and then their job is to scoot around the battlefield, existing and holding points or picking up markers. And there's probably a better unit for it than them, but I think they look cool as well. But in a game like this, they really weren't going to contribute much. So, into turn 8. Here we go, same runes again. That is someone attacking, I do believe. Oh yes, that's Aliana charging into the rear of Maro. I gave her an extra red dice. Picks up a bit of damage. Not a whole lot, funnily enough. So there we go. Wasn't my best roll. But I think I had 5 panic tokens on him, because he already had one, then 2 for the impact, and then I dialed one in on... No, and then I rolled 2 or something like that. So this is everything I could get. And I think I picked up the one where I got to re-maneuver him, because I just made him turn his back to the tree. His Maro goes, and he really doesn't get a good roll here at all, and just pops a wound on the tree. His Death Knights go and wipe out the rest of my unit. 1, 2, 3 hits, times 2, 6, and the mortal wound they dial in just wipes them out. My tree attacks, and yeah, dialed in a hit in the rear, rolled a fairly good roll, boom. And to be honest, with all the resurrecting that he was doing, Maro didn't have that many wounds left. Yeah, this turn was brilliant. So my archers go. Yeah, I'm probably get, at least pick one of them off. Yep, no. Between the reroll, yep, nothing. Couldn't get one single hit. And the big unit of archers goes, and yeah, not brilliant either. I think they managed 1 wound, 2 wounds. With that would be what, 1, 3, plus lethal 2, yeah. That's 1 wound. And then, what do you know? Here we go, boom, boom, double hit. So that's 4 plus lethal 6. And there we go. That resulted in an elf win. Really enjoyable game. I'm really getting to grips with how to deal with the undead, the Waiqar. I just think with the extra maneuverability that the elves have, they can outshoot them. And a lot of the big blocks for the Waiqar are fairly slow. So unless I'm coming up a big worm star or a lot of cav, I can sort of keep away from the units quite comfortably. But hey ho, we'll see how that goes if I continue that. Anyway, thanks for joining me. I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.